Good afternoon, my dear students. Today we are going to discuss Iswaran, the storyteller from your supplementary English book, Moments. Okay, so Iswaran, the storyteller. So first, I want to give some introduction to this lesson. So the title of this chapter, Iswaran, the storyteller, tells us that his history is about Iswaran. He is called the storyteller because a storytelling is an art. He is good at it. Iswaran uses special effects, does voice modulation, uses his body language to make the story realistic, and so that the listener, that is Mahendra, gets attracted and captivated in his story. The writer wants to highlight this quality of Iswaran, that he was so good at telling stories that they appear to be real. His stories were a source of entertainment for Mahendra. Okay, this is the introduction to the lesson. So next, we are going to discuss paragraph wise. Let's go to your first paragraph. The story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man, Mahendra by name. He was a junior supervisor in a firm which offered on hire supervisors at various types of construction sites like factories, bridges, dams, and so on. Mahendra's job was to keep an eye on the activities at the work site. He had to keep moving from place to place every now and then, as ordered by his head office, from a coal mining area to a railway bridge construction site. From thereafter, a few months to a chemical plant which was coming up somewhere. So here, supervisor. So supervisor means what? Supervisor means a person whose job is to check the work of the other people. He is known as the supervisor. So here Mahendra narrated a story about his cook, Iswaran, to Ganesh. Mahendra worked as a junior supervisor in a company which provided junior supervisors to various construction companies on rent. He got posted at different sites like factories, bridges and dams which were under construction. Mahendra's work was to keep an eye on all the workers at the site. He had to change places often and worked at various places like a coal mine, railway bridge, construction site and the construction site of a chemical plant. So this is about your first paragraph. So here we know about Mahendra and another person, that is Ganesh. Okay, so let us go to the second paragraph of your book. So Iswaran, the storyteller. It is written by the great cartoonist R.K. Narayan. Okay, in the first paragraph we have already discussed and we know about Ganesh. The story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man, and what is his name? His name is Mahendra. Okay. Then next come to the second paragraph of your book. He was a bachelor. His needs were simple and he was able to adjust himself to all kinds of odd conditions, whether it was an ill-equipped circuit house or a makeshift canvas tent in the middle of the stone quarry. But one asset he had was his cook, Iswaran. The cook was quite attached to Mahendra and followed him uncomplainingly wherever he was posted. He cooked for Mahendra, washed his clothes, and chatted away with his master at night. He could weave out endless stories and anecdotes on varied subjects. So in this paragraph, you will find many difficult words. First one, that is bachelor. So what is bachelor? A person who is unmarried is bachelor. Maxit means temporary. Quarry means mine. Asset means advantage here. Next, anecdote. Anecdote is a completely new word to you students. Anecdote means a short, amusing or interesting story about a real incident or person. So in this second paragraph is Mahendra was unmarried. He did not have a family. He was able to live in these temporary quarters provided at the construction site. He adjusted well in the circuit houses which did not provide the basic amenities or even the tents which were completely temporary in nature. Mahendra had what? Mahendra had an advantage. And what is that? He was accompanied by his cook Iswaran. Iswaran, the storyteller. Okay. Iswaran was very close to Mahendra and accompanied him everywhere. He did not complain about the tough condition in which he had to live. He cooked food for him, washed his clothes, and gave him company by talking to him at night. Okay, Iswaran had a quality that he was good at telling stories, and he entertained Mahendra with his stories which were based on different subjects. So here we introduced, or we can say the writer R.K. Narayan introduced us with Iswaran, the storyteller, who used to tell stories to Mahendra. Not only he was telling stories to Mahendra, at the same time he was cooking food for him, washed his clothes and gave him company by talking to him at night also. So this is about your second paragraph. So let's go to your third paragraph of your book. Iswaran also had an amazing capacity to produce vegetables and cooking ingredients, seemingly out of nowhere, in the middle of a desolate landscape with no shops visible for miles around. He would miraculously conjure up the most delicious dishes made with fresh vegetables within an hour of arriving at the Jinxit Center at the new workplace. So in this paragraph, you will find many difficult words like desolate. Desolate means uninhabited or empty. Conjure up, to gather or create with magic. Jinxit Shelter means a temporary place to live with the roof made of metallic sheets. So in this third paragraph, Mahendra tells Ganesh that Iswaran was a great cook. Okay, whenever they shifted to a new location, he would gather all the vegetables and other ingredients required by him to cook in no time. If they lived at places which was not inhabited by many people, means very less people are staying there, in temporary shelters with roofs made of metallic sheets. It seemed as if he would do some magic and gather all the ingredients out of nowhere. Means here, Mahendra praises Iswaran. He was not a good cook, but at the same time, he can do everything. In a desolate place also, he can find the vegetables and he can prepare the delicious food for Mahendra. Okay, let's go to your next paragraph. Mahendra would be up early in the morning and leave for work after breakfast, carrying some prepared food with him. Meanwhile, Iswaran would tidy up the set, wash the clothes and have a leisurely bath, pouring several buckets of water over his head. muttering a prayer. Muttering a prayer all the while. It would be lunchtime by then. After eating, he would read for a while before dozing off. The book was usually some popular Tamil thriller running to hundreds of pages. Okay? Its imaginative descriptions and narrative flourishes would hold Iswaran in thrall. Okay, so here in this paragraph, you will get some difficult words. That is muttering. So what is muttering? Muttering means speaking in a low voice. Dodging off means falling asleep. Like narrative flourishes. Narrative flourishes means detailed descriptions. Enthrall. It is a completely new word for my students. Enthrall means the state of being in someone's power. Okay. So, here in this paragraph, Mahendra would wake up early in the morning. Okay. And get ready and leave for work after eating his breakfast. So, who is preparing the breakfast? Iswaran was preparing the breakfast. He would carry his lunch along with him. Okay. At the same time, Iswaran prepared the breakfast and lunch. After he left, Iswaran would clean their living place, wash Mahendra's clothes and have a nice bath. Okay. He would take many pockets of water and pour water on his head while mumbling a prayer, while telling some prayer while bathing. Okay. Then after that, he would eat his lunch and read his favorite book. And what is that? The favorite book in Tamil language. Okay. Iswaran would get carried away with the details and descriptions given in the books that he read. Then he would go off to sleep. Okay. So from here, from this paragraph, we understood that Iswaran's habit, or we can say he was habituated to read the books. And in which language? In Tamil language. And what kind of books? The description books. Means the big stories. Okay? Let's go to your next paragraph of your book. Okay? His own descriptions were greatly influenced by the Tamil authors that he read. When he was narrating even the smallest of incidents, he would try to work in suspense and a surprise, ending into the account. For example, instead of saying that he had come across an uprooted tree on the highway, he would say, with eyebrows suitably arched and hands hold out in a dramatic gesture, the road was deserted and I was all alone. Suddenly, I spotted something that looked like an enormous bushy beast lying sprawled across the road. I was half inclined to turn and go back, but as I came closer, I saw that it was a fallen tree, okay, with its dry branches spread out. Mahendra would stretch himself back in his canvas chair and listen to Iswaran's tales uncritically. So in this paragraph, we will find some difficult words. So first, let us discuss the meaning of the difficult words. Arched. Arched means carved. Gesture. Gesture means a movement of hands for head to indicate something. Then deserted. Deserted means where no one is going, or simply we can say empty place. The next, enormous. Enormous means huge one. So as Iswaran reads stories with detailed descriptions, okay, he narrated them in the same way. Mahendra recollects that he would narrate even a small incident with a lot of suspense and surprise, which made it more interesting for the listener. Okay, Then he gives an example that instead of saying that he was walking down the highway and he came across a tree. Okay, he came across a tree. But he will tell that story in a different way. What he will tell? What he will tell? Iswaran uses his facial expressions, okay, and bodily gestures to narrate it. How he will narrate? Okay, I was walking down the highway and he came across a tree which had fallen on the tree. Then what he will say? He would say that the road was empty. The road was empty and he was all alone. This would create suspense in the listener's mind. Then he would say that all of a sudden what he saw? He saw that a huge beast was lying across the road. Huge beast was lying across the road. Then the listener will be what? It will be more interesting. It will be more suspense. What kind of that beast was lying on the road, across the road? As you walked ahead, no? His mind was telling him to turn and go back. But as he reached closer, he saw that it was a tree that had fallen and was lying on the road. The branches of the tree had spread out and it seemed as if it was a huge beast. In reality, that huge beast is not a beast. The huge beast was a fallen tree only, okay? Mahendra says that this talent of Iswaran made the simple story very interesting and it captivated him. Although he knew that some of the stories were not true, but the way Iswaran narrated them was so interesting that Mahendra would not say anything and listen to him quietly, because the stories of Iswaran, it entertained whom? Entertains always Mahendra. Okay? So let us go to the next paragraph of your book. The place I come from is famous for timber. Iswaran would begin. There is a richly wooded forest all around. The logs were hauled onto the lorries by elephants. They are huge well-fed beasts. When they turn wild, even the most experienced mahout is not able to control them. After this prologue, Iswaran would launch into an elaborate anecdote involving an elephant. So in this paragraph, we will find some difficult words. First one, that is timber. So what is timber? Timber means wood that has been processed for commercial purposes. That is known as timber. The next, hauled. Hauled means transported. Prologue. Prologue means an introductory speech. Elaborate, detailed. So in this paragraph, Mahendra recollects another story told by Iswaran. Iswaran said that his native village was surrounded by a huge forest which was full of trees. Okay, the huge logs of timber were sold for commercial purposes and they were transported onto the vehicles by the elephants. Elephants, they were very used, but if they became mad, they would get out of control and the mouth would not be able to tame them or to control them. So this introductory session was followed by a detailed study involving an elephant. Have you seen the elephant? The huge animal or the largest animal is known as the elephant. Okay. So let us go to your next paragraph. Okay. So one day a tusker escaped from the timber yard and began to roam about, stamping on bushes, tearing up wild creepers and breaking branches at will. You know, sir, how an elephant behaves when it goes mad. Iswaran would get so caught up in the excitement of his own story that he would get up from the floor and jump about, stamping his feet in emulation of this mad elephant. So here also you will find some difficult words. So let us discuss first, then after I will elaborate the paragraph. So tusker. So who the animals, those who have tusk? Who were they or who are they? The elephant. So tusker means an elephant. Roam about means move around. So moving from here and there, they are known as roam about. Stamping. Stamping means hitting with force is known as stamping. Emulation. Emulation means effort to match or surpass a person by imitation or copying. So the story was narrated as follows. Okay, one day an elephant escaped from the timber yard and roamed around the forest. It stepped on the bushes and crushed them, tore the creeper plants and broke branches of trees which came in its way. Okay, then Iswaran asked Mahendran whether he knew how a mad elephant behaved. In order to make his story more effective, more surprise, more effective, Iswaran stood up and jumped around the place, hitting his foot on the ground in order to copy the action of the mad elephant. Okay, so let us go to your next paragraph. The elephant reached the outskirts of our town, breaking the fences down like matchsticks. He would continue. It came into the main road and smashed all the stalls selling fruits, mud pots and cloths. People ran helter-skelter in panic. The elephant now entered a school ground where children were playing, breaking through the brick wall. All the boys ran into the classroom and shut the doors tight. The beast grunted and wandered about, pulling out the football goalpost, tearing down the volleyball net, kicking and flattening the drum kept for water, and uprooting the shrubs. Meanwhile, all the teachers had climbed up to the terrace of the school building. From there, they helplessly watched the depredations of the elephant. There was not a soul below on the ground. The streets were empty, as if the inhabitants of the entire town had suddenly disappeared. So here you will find some difficult words. Let us discuss first. That is outskirts. Outskirts means out area. Helter-skelter means here and there. Panic means suddenly fear, causing means unthinkable behavior. That is known as panic. Grunted made a loud sound is known as grunted. Then depredations. Depredations means attacks which are made to destroy something. So we are discussing about the story, about a story, and the story is about an elephant. And who is narrating the story? Iswaran is narrating the story to Mahendra. Okay. So as the elephant reached the outer boundary of their town, it broke the fences. The fences seemed as if they were like matchsticks for the huge elephant. Okay, how you are breaking the matchsticks, no? The same way the elephant broke all the fences. The elephant reached the main road and broke all the stalls selling different kinds of things like fruits, mud pots and cloths. The people were taken unaware and so they ran here and there. They all were frightened, so they ran here and there. Then it broke the wall of a school and entered the crowd where the students were playing. All the students ran back into their classroom and closed the doors. The elephants made loud noises and roamed around the school because the elephant became mad. Okay, the elephant became mad. So the elephant made loud noises and roamed around in the school ground. Then it broke the goalpost in the football ground also. Okay, tore the net that had been put up in the volleyball court also. Stepped on the water drum and broke it, and tore many plants as well. So the teachers had climbed onto the roof of the school building and watched helplessly because they were not able to do anything, because they cannot control the huge elephant. As he was mad, as the elephant destroyed the school property, but the teachers were completely helpless. There were not even a single person to be seen around. Means all ran to their places, to their houses, and they closed their doors and windows. All the streets of the town were empty, as all the people were scared of the mad elephant. So all the people of that place, they were scared of this mad elephant. And they all reside in their home and closed their doors and windows. And the teachers, they were on the roof and they are watching everything helplessly. I was studying in the junior class at that time. I was Miss Iswaran, okay, and was watching the whole drama from the rooftop. I don't know what came over me suddenly. I grabbed a can from the hands of one of the teachers and ran down the stairs and into the open. The elephant grunted and meaningly slung a branch of tree which it held in its trunk. It stamped its feet, kicking up a lot of mud and dust. It looked frightening, but I moved slowly towards it, stick in hand. People were watching the scene, hypnotized from nearby housetops. The elephant looked at me red-eyed, ready to rush towards me. It lifted its trunk and trumpeted loudly. At that moment, I moved forward and, mustering all my force, whacked its third toenail on the quick. The beast looked stunned for a moment. Then it shivered from head to foot and collapsed. So hypnotize. So hypnotize means what? To influence, control or direct completely as by person, charm, words or domination is known as hypnotize. Mastering. Mastering, here the meaning of the mastering is putting together. Whacked, hit noisily, collapsed, fell. So, in the previous paragraph, we knew that in the previous paragraph, the mad elephant was destroying everything. Then, what Iswaran had done? Okay. So, at the time of the incident, Iswaran was studying in one of the junior classes in the school. He was watching the elephant from the rooftop. Suddenly, he took the stick from one of his teachers and ran downstairs toward the school ground. Okay, the elephant made a loud noise when he saw a small boy approaching towards it. It lifted a branch of a tree in its trunk, hit its foot on the ground, which threw a lot of mud and dust in the air. The elephant was threatening Iswaran, but the little boy was not afraid of it. With the stick in his hand, he moved toward the elephant slowly. Many people had climbed onto the rooftops of their houses and were watching the incident. Okay, means here we can imagine the way of telling the story. Means how nicely, means how elaborately, suspensely the Iswaran was telling the story here. So always standing still, and we can say always awestruck, waiting to see what happened next. Iswaran saw the elephant had red colored eyes which were full of anger. It again lifted its trunk and made a loud trumpet sound as it was about to attack Iswaran. Just then, Iswaran gathered all his force and hit the elephant's third toenail quickly. The elephant was stunned here at what had happened. Then it reacted by shivering all over, fainted and fell on the ground unconsciously. So the way of telling the story means telling the story is an art, and this art can done by very effectively by Iswaran. So that is the reason R.K. Narayan has given the name, that is Iswaran, the storyteller. So your next paragraph. At this point, Iswaran would leave the story unfinished and get up mumbling, "I will be back after lighting the gas and warming up the dinner." Mahendra, who had been listening with rapt attention, would be left hanging. When he returned, Iswaran would pick up the thread of the story right away. Mahendra would have to remind him that the conclusion was pending. Well, a veterinary doctor was summoned to revive the animal. Iswaran would shrunk casually. 2 days later, it was led away by its mohat to the jungle. Okay, so first let us discuss some difficult words of this paragraph. That is, rapt attention means completely fascinated or captured by what one is seeing or hearing. Pick up the thread of the story means would not start the story from where he left in order to arouse curiosity. Veterinary doctor, a doctor who specializes in treating animals. Summoned means called. Shrug, to raise one's shoulders slightly and momentarily to express doubt, ignorance or indifference. Okay, so let us discuss this paragraph. After this, Iswaran would leave the story incomplete. In a low voice, he would say that he would return after lighting the gas stove to warm the dinner, as they were getting late for the meal. Mahendra would be curious to know what happened next and would feel disappointed that Iswaran had left the story unfinished. Okay, on returning, he would not continue the story as he wanted to arouse curiosity in Mahendra. Mahendra, who would be eager to know the ending, would ask Iswaran to conclude the story. Iswaran would just say casually that a veterinary doctor was called to bring the elephant back to consciousness, and after 2 days the mahout would take the elephant back to the jungle. So here you can understand the art of telling a story. And Iswaran, we can say Iswaran was perfect in telling a story. He can arouse the curiosity in the mind of the listener. He can arouse the suspense, the surprise in the mind of the listener. So here we can understand he was a perfect storyteller. Each storytelling is an art. Okay, so let us go to the next paragraph of your book. So how did you manage to do it, Iswaran? Who is asking? Mahendran is asking. How did you bring down the beast? It has something to do with a Japanese art. I think, sir, karate and jujitsu it is called. I had read about it somewhere. It temporarily paralyzes the nervous system, you see. So, here Mahendran was asking to Iswaran, so how can you do this? Is it was possible? Can it be happened? So like these questions was coming in the mind of Mahendra. So Mahendra was curious to know that how did the young Iswaran, means the small boy Iswaran, manage to overpower the huge elephant. So Iswaran said that he performed a Japanese martial art. You can see in the picture also. He said it was either karate or jujitsu. He had read about it somewhere. The martial art rendered a person unconscious by disturbing the nervous system. So actually he has done or not, it is also, the story is completely true or not. Everything is a question mark here. Because he was very fond of reading the different kinds of books. Maybe a story he had read somewhere else. Okay. But the way he was saying the story is different. And it makes, or you can say, it creates the curiosity. It creates the suspense. It creates the interest in the mind of the listener. Okay. So let us go to your next paragraph. Okay. Okay. Not a day passed without Iswaran recounting some story packed with adventure, horror and suspense. Whether the story was credible or not, Mahendra enjoyed listening to it because of the inimitable way in which it was told. Iswaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of a TV in Mahendra's living quarters. So here credible. Credible means able to be believed, or we can say convincing. Imitable, unique. So every day Iswaran would narrate one or the other story, full of adventure, horror, thrill. Sometimes Mahendra felt that the story was a fiction. Okay, the story was a fiction, but still he enjoyed listening to it because of the unique way in which it was narrated by Iswaran. Okay, as there was no television set at the place where they lived, but these stories were a source of entertainment for Mahendra. So we can say the art of telling story. So Mahendra was a good storyteller, or we can say he was very good at telling stories. So here he is a source of entertainment. So he can take the place of a television set. So imagine the storytelling is an art. Okay. So let's go to your next paragraph. So let us discuss the next paragraph. One morning when Mahendra was having breakfast, Iswaran asked, "Can I make something special for dinner tonight, sir? After all, today is an auspicious day. According to tradition, we prepare various delicacies to feed the spirits of our ancestors today, sir." Okay, auspicious, good. Delicacies, tasty food, delicious foods. Okay, tasty food. Spirits, soul of the dead. Ancestors, elders of the family. So one morning, Mahendra was having his breakfast. While Mahendra was having his breakfast, Iswaran asked him if he would prepare a special meal for dinner, as it was a good day. He added that on that day they prepare special food for the souls of the dead elders of the family. Okay, means no doubt he was a good storyteller, at the same time a very good cook, and who can prepare the delicious foods. That night, Mahendra enjoyed the most delicious dinner and complimented Iswaran on his culinary skills. He seemed very pleased, but unexpectedly launched into a most garish account involving the supernatural. So here we will find some difficult words like culinary skills. Culinary skills means related to cooking. Means those who are good at cooking are known as the culinary skills. Garish, something which is too colorful and fancy. That it is disliked also, disliked. Supernatural, related to ghosts and spirits. Okay. So Iswaran had preparing a delicious dinner, and Mahendra praised his cooking skills. Iswaran was happy on being praised, but all of a sudden started narrating a detailed story relating to ghosts and supernatural powers, which was disliked by Mahendra. So Mahendra liked different kinds of stories, but from this paragraph we came to know that he didn't like the stories which is based on ghosts or spirits. Okay? So let us go to the next paragraph of your book. You know, sir, this entire factory area we are occupying was once a burial ground. He started. Mahendra was jerked out of the pleasant reverie he had drifted into after the satisfying meal. I knew of the first day itself when I saw a human skull lying on the path. Even now I come across a number of skulls and bones, Iswaran continued. So here, revere means a state of being pleasantly lost in one's thought, or you can say simply a daydream. So Iswaran said to Mahendra, what said? That the site of the factory was earlier a place where the dead were buried. Mahendra jerked out of the pleasant thought. After the testimony, Iswaran continued that on the first day itself he had seen a human skull lying on the ground when he was returning after buying vegetables. Even later he had come across a number of skulls and bones lying around the place. So here in this paragraph also we can understand that Mahendra was very much satisfied with the testimony, but as he dislikes the stories about the ghost and the spirits. So here still Iswaran was narrating about the skulls he found, skulls and bones he found which were lying on the place. Okay. So let us go to the next paragraph of your book. He went on to narrate how he sometimes saw ghosts at night. I am not easily frightened by these things, sir. I am a brave fellow. Who is saying? Iswaran was saying. But one horrible ghost of a woman, which appears at midnight during the full moon. It was an ugly creature with matted hair and a shriveled face, like a skeleton holding a fetus in its arm. So here several different difficult words we will get. And what is that? Shriveled. Shriveled means wrinkled or shrunken. Fetus means unborn baby. So now Iswaran was narrating the story about the ghosts. Okay. Iswaran added that sometimes he saw ghosts at night. Although he was not scared of them. He was saying that he was not scared of them. As he was a brave person. But once he saw a very horrible ghost of a woman. It appeared on a full moon night at 12 o'clock at midnight. It was very ugly. Had matted hair and shrunken, withered face. It looked like a skeleton and holding an unborn baby in its arm. So, it is so threatening, no children? When you see like this ghost, will you frightened of that or not? Obviously, you will frightened, okay? So, let us go to your next paragraph. Mahendra shivered at the description and interrupted rather sharply. You are crazy, Iswaran. There are no such things as ghosts and spirits. It is all a figment of your imagination. Get your digestive system examined and maybe your head as well. You are talking nonsense. Okay. So pigment means production. So Mahendra disliked the story and interrupted sharply. He scolded Iswaran and said that he had gone mad. Okay, Mahendra said the ghost did not exist. He added that it was Iswaran's imagination. He ordered Iswaran to get himself checked up, to get his digestive system and at the same time his brain examined as he was speaking nonsense. Mahendra asked him to get his digestive system checked up because when a person is suffering from constipation, he gets nightmares and dreams of ghosts and supernatural powers. Now you understand why he said you need your checkup of your digestive system? Because when you have any suffering in your digestive system means you will suffer from constipations, and those who suffers from constipations, he gets the nightmares and dreams of ghosts and supernatural powers. Understood? So let us go to the next paragraph of your book. He left the room and retired for the night, expecting Iswaran to sulk for a couple of days. But the next morning he was surprised to find the cook as cheerful and talkative as ever. Sulk means be silent. Bad-tempered means out of annoyance or disappointment. Okay. Mahendra had thought that Iswaran would remain quiet for a few days, as he had scolded him the previous night, that you need checkup for your digestive system and as well as your brain. So Mahendra thought Iswaran would remain quiet for a few days, as he had scolded him. But what is the consequence? He was astonished to see a cheerful and talkative Iswaran the next morning. No changes. Iswaran remained the same age he was. He didn't find any changes in Iswaran. Okay. So let us go to the next paragraph of your book. From that day on, Mahendra, for all his brave talk, went to bed with a certain unease. Every night he peered into the darkness outside through the window next to his bed. Okay. Trying to make sure that there was no movement of dark shapes in the vicinity. But he could only see a sea of darkness with the twinkling lights of the factory miles away. So, vicinity means nearby area, that is known as vicinity. So, Mahendra showed that he was very brave, but on the contrary, he was completely uneasy because of the story Iswaran had narrated about the ghost, spirits and everything. Every night before going to bed, he peeped out of the window next to his bed to assure himself that there was no ghost around. He did not see any ghost but only saw darkness and the twinkling lights of the factory. So imagine here, Mahendra was showing only that he was very brave, but inside he was completely uneasy. He was completely frightened by the ghosts and spirits, or you can say frightened by the stories which was narrated by Iswaran. Okay, so let us go to the next paragraph of your book. He had always liked to admire the milk white landscape on the full moon nights. But after hearing Iswaran's story of the female ghost, he avoided looking out of his window altogether when the moon was full. So before listening the stories which were told by Mahendra, which were told by Iswaran. So here, before listening to Iswaran's story, Mahendra liked watching the white colored landscape on a full moon night. As Iswaran had told Mahendran that on a full moon night, a female ghost haunted place. He stopped looking out on the night, as he was afraid bumping into the ugly ghost. So from here we can understand that Mahendra was completely uneasy. And this ghost story has completely affected him. Then what happened? Let's discuss in the next paragraph. One night, Mahendra was woken up from his sleep by a low moan close to his window. At first, he put it down to a cat prowling around for mice. But the sound was too guttural for a cat. He resisted the curiosity to look out lest he should behold a sight which would stop his heart. But the wailing became louder and less feline. He could not resist the temptation anymore. Lowering himself to the level of the windowsill, he looked out at the white sheet of moonlight outside. There, not too far away, was a dark cloudy from clutching a bundle. Mahendra broke into a cold sweat and fell back on the pillow. Panting, as he gradually recovered from the ghastly appearance, he began to reason with himself and finally concluded that it must have been some sort of auto-suggestion, some trick that his subconscious had played on him. So, in this paragraph, it is a big paragraph. So, in this paragraph, we will get some difficult words. That is moan. Moan means crying sound. Prowling means searching. Prowling means searching. Guttural. Guttural means sound produced in the throat, harsh sounding. That is harsh sounding. Wailing, crying sound. When someone is crying. Feline, relating to cats or other members of the cat family. Panting, breathing heavily. Ghastly, causing horror and fear. Autosuggestion, subconscious adoption of an idea which one has originated oneself. So after listening the stories which were told by Iswaran, Mahendra was completely you can say depressed also, you can say. He was completely depressed or uneasy, or he was feeling completely uneasy. One night, as Mahendran was asleep, he was awakened by the sound of someone crying. He thought that it could be a cat looking for the mice and tried to go back to sleep. The sound became more harsh and seemed to be a human sound. So Mahendra wanted to peep out of the window, but stopped himself, as he was afraid that if he saw a ghost, he could even die. The crying sound became louder, and it did not appear to be the sound of a cat. Mahendra could not stop himself, and so he bent down and lifted his head slightly in order to peep out. In the white-colored moonlight, Mahendra saw the ghost. It was holding a bundle in one hand. Mahendra panicked. He was breathing heavily and fell back on the bed. After some time, he recovered from the scary experience and thought that probably his subconscious mind was showing him the ghost, as he had been thinking of it. He assured himself that actually there was no ghost and his mind was playing a trick on him. So here he tried to console his mind, but Mahendra was unable to console his mind here. He tried to console his mind. He was thinking there was no ghost, there was no spirit. And at last he came to a conclusion that as he was thinking of the spirits and ghosts, that may be the reason that his mind was playing a trick on him. So next what happened? Let's discuss in your next paragraph. Okay? By the time he had got up in the morning, had a bath and come out to have his breakfast. The horror of the previous night had faded from his memory. Iswaran greeted him at the door with his lunch packet and his bag. Just as Mahendra was stepping out, Iswaran grinned and said, "Sir, remember the other day when I was telling you about the female ghost with a fetus in its arms? You were so angry with me for imagining things. Well, you saw her yourself last night. I came running, hearing the sound of moaning that was coming from your room." Okay. So grinned. Grinned means smile broadly. That is grinned. Resolving, deciding. Resolving, deciding. Haunted place means visited by ghosts. That is known as the haunted place. So by the time Mahendra woke up, took his bath and came out for breakfast, he had forgotten the ghostly appearance of the previous night. Iswaran greeted him, gave him his lunch and his bag. As Mahendra was about to leave, Iswaran smiled and said that the other day Mahendra had scolded him for discussing the ugly ghost. But last night, Mahendra himself saw it. Iswaran had heard Mahendra's cries the previous night. Then Iswaran said that day when I was narrating something, you said that things only you can imagine. The ghost and the spirits, they were not there. They did not exist. It's your imagination. You have some problem maybe in your digestive system or in your mind. Then what happened next? So let us discuss. Okay. Let's go to the last paragraph of your book. A chill went down Mahendra's spine. He did not wait for Iswaran to complete his sentence. He hurried away to his office and handed in his papers, resolving to leave the haunted place the very next day. So spine means backbone, resolving means deciding, handed his papers means resigned. So next day what happened? Iswaran's comment scared Mahendra once again. He did not hear him further and hurried up to his office. He decided to resign from his job and leave the haunted place. So he could not live there any longer. So he left the place. So here, this is about your story. So what the moral you are getting from here? Anyone can say what the moral you are getting from here? Okay. So what is the moral or the theme of the story? So nobody is free from fears. Yes. So everybody accepts the presence of ghosts and spirits, but feels hesitant to express this truth openly. If fear lies in our heart, okay, we should try to know the proper cause of this fear. In fear, we may take some wrong decisions, how Mahendran has taken. So wrong decision and put our lives into problems. Therefore, we have to be bold enough to make good decision in all circumstances. Okay? Thank you, students.